What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for The Flash, Season 5, Episode 3, titled The Death of Vibe. And first of all, the title of the episode being The Death of Vibe was very weird to me before the episode came out because either of one or two things. One, the title was incorrect, where Vibe actually doesn't die, or two, it actually spoils the death of one of the biggest characters on the show. So, looking at the title, it was a weird-looking title for an episode, but after I watched the episode, the title makes complete sense, and I think it's a great title for the episode. So the first thing I'll talk about is not the death of Vibe, because that does happen near the end of the episode. First thing I'll talk about is everything that Nora knew about Cicada and seeing the actual Flash museum. I thought that was a great, really amazing way to make Cicada this scary serial killer monster kind of guy and set him up as a really great main villain of this season. And seeing the actual Flash museum was very, very cool, especially like with the room we saw with the villains. I don't think we saw any villains that we haven't seen yet. I don't think, which would be a little weird because and that means that the 5 or whatever how many seasons they're going to have after this, the villains who are going to appear in that I don't think we saw them in the Flash museum unless I missed something. But in general, the first couple minutes of this episode were great because of the fact that it set up Cicada really well, and then the actual Flash Museum was cool to see. But then the episode did slow down a bit by the fact that it introduced Sherlock Wells. So I've said this before, and I'll probably say it time and time again until it's resolved as an issue on the show. I think that Sherlock Wells and any Harrison Wells that will appear on the show after Harry Wells from Season 2, or at least after Season 4, every single version of Harrison Wells after that point is completely redundant, completely unnecessary for the show. It's really repetitive. It doesn't bring much to any show. There are already enough characters in the first 2 episodes of the season. They didn't really need to add another character. He doesn't add much either. I think that this episode, Sherlock Wells, his introduction was fine, and he wasn't crazy different compared to the other Harrison Wells. Obviously, he has an accent a little bit, and he's a detective, but he has the same personality, really. He acts very similar to a mixture, really, of H.R., Harry, and maybe Harrison Wells from Season 1, and I don't think he is a necessary character. I did enjoy him in this episode. I think he was an enjoyable character, but for the 20 episodes we're going to have the season after this one, he's probably not going to be very enjoyable. He's going to be very repetitive. He's not going to add anything, so although he wasn't a bother in this episode, although the episode did slow down to introduce him, I feel like he will become a bother in this season if he is used too much and if he is given a actual storyline like Harry Wells in Season 4, which was very bad. I don't think they should do that. Really, the only thing they could do with him is have him clash with Ralph, or even teach Ralph how to be a better detective. I think that could be interesting, and just be a detective in general. But I would say Sherlock Wells, I'm already not a fan of the fact that they introduced this character. That being said, though, in this episode he was quite enjoyable. And I would say that the whole storyline of Sherlock tracking down Cicada and Cicada going after Vibe in this episode, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was quite tense, and the twist that David Hirsch is actually not Cicada, and he's a guy named Orlin something, that was a good twist because, I mean, it wasn't the greatest twist just because they didn't really set up David Hirsch as a character, and David Hirsch, Cicada in the comics, not a very known character, so not a lot of people know his name from the comics. Say Reverse Flash turned out to actually be Harrison Wells, that would have been a twist. Probably not a good one because he's an iconic character, just say Eobard Thawne. But here, not the greatest twist, but I did not see it coming. I definitely thought that David Hirsch would turn out to be Cicada, or rather Cicada would turn out to be David Hirsch, but it seems like he is a new character, an original character actually. I looked up the name Orlin on DC Wiki. Not a single character named Orlin, so this seems to be an original character using the Cicada name, which is incredibly similar to Prometheus in Arrow Season 5. There are so many things pointing to Cicada being similar to Prometheus. They both are using the name of a comic book villain, and Prometheus and Cicada, but they are not actually that comic book villain. They are somebody else. In Prometheus' case, he's Adrian Chase or Simon Morrison. Here, Cicada is a guy named Orlin, or Orlin something. I'm not really sure, but the similarities between Cicada and Prometheus are still not ending, and I really hope that turns out to mean that Cicada is as good, or at least almost as good. But again, I thought the whole storyline with Cicada in this episode was done really well, and the conclusion of that, the Vibe and the Cicada and Flash fight scene, was also really great. So, like I said earlier, this episode being titled The Death of Vibe was very, very unusual. Is it a spoiler? Is it a misdirect? I didn't know, but then this episode came out and it really cleared the air on what the title means. And after watching the episode, in hindsight, it is one of my favorite titles of an episode, which isn't much in terms of the quality of the episode. It doesn't say much, but thankfully this episode is very good, and the title is just great because before the episode comes out, I guess you're really speculating about what happens in this episode. Did the title spoil it? Is it just a misdirection? Will he just, or will Cisco actually lose his powers? A lot of speculation going around, and then the episode came out. None of that happened. Cisco didn't die. He didn't lose his powers, and Vibe didn't really lose his superhero moniker. The thing that happened was the death of Vibe to the public. The public and Cicada think that Cisco, aka Vibe, or just rather Vibe, is dead, and I really liked how they did that. The whole conclusion and the title of the episode was just a twist in and of itself. Like, the title of the episode being it is, The Death of Vibe, brought a twist with it. Like, if that wasn't the title of the episode, then you wouldn't be expecting Cisco to die, because Cisco Ramon seems unkillable on the show. He's a fan favorite character. I think that a lot of people will stop watching if they kill off Cisco. So if the title of the episode was something else and he disappeared for a while, you would not think, oh, Cisco's dead. You would think, oh, he's going to come back any second now. But the fact that the title of the episode is The Death of Vibe, when he actually disappeared for a couple seconds, you actually think, wait a second, is he actually dead? But then he comes back and you are so relieved, because before that, it's kind of emotional. I thought all of that was done incredibly well. A great twist for the episode and a great ending for the episode. And on top of that, it is very satisfying to watch. It's a great relief when Cisco comes back. It's a great twist. And like I said, it's very satisfying to watch in terms of Nora Allen's storyline in this episode. Because throughout the first two episodes and most of this episode, Nora was very anxious to fix what she broke, which was kind of the timeline. She messed it up a little bit. It's different. So in this episode, they really emphasized that she was very anxious to do something about it and fix it. But then near the end, she becomes a lot more rational, actually thinks of a solution to what's going on by making it so that Cicada and the public think that Cisco is dead, so that Cicada doesn't actually go after Cisco. I would say when she actually threw the thing at Cisco, Cisco, and then Cisco threw it at Cicada, and he hit it back. Like I said earlier, I 100% thought that Vibe was dead, and I was also thinking how Nora would be even more distraught over it and how she made another mistake. But then it was revealed that it was all a play on Cicada, and it was all Nora's plan, which not only was a great relief on the fact that Vibe isn't dead and a great twist, and it was very emotional before that. Again, it was very satisfying for Nora's storyline, because she goes just from being a very, very anxious about fixing everything to being very rational and actually thinking of a solution to the problem. So I thought everything involved with the title of the episode, The Death of Vibe, everything involved in that storyline, the ending, the fight scene, the conclusion of that storyline, and the conclusion of Nora's storyline in this episode, all done incredibly well, and it makes, honestly, for one of the best episodes of the show, and probably the best episode of the season so far. In fact, it is definitely the best episode of the season so far. Then there was the side storyline with Caitlin and Ralph, and one thing I'd say is before this episode, I wasn't very interested in her side storyline. I felt like it would be very contrived, very unnecessary, but after this episode, I would say I'm a lot more interested. I thought this episode's dealing with that whole storyline was very, very good. Like, the espionage of it and really the mystery around it, I thought was done very well, and I'm honestly much more excited for the storyline after this episode, and it's the first time that I'm actually interested in it, because one thing they actually mentioned in a previous episode that I did not even realize until I saw an article about it online is they mentioned a guy who I don't remember his name because it's a very weird name, and I don't have it here right in front of me, but that guy is actually Icicle, and I think this storyline will end up with Caitlin's father being the villain named Icicle, who I think could turn out to be a great villain for this show, if not like one of the villains of the show for a couple episodes, or maybe a future main villain. That could be very cool as well. But in this episode, everything about the Caitlin side story was also done pretty well, and I'm much more interested about all of that after this episode. Then the episode ended with two reveals. One, that Nora Allen is probably not working alone. This is the one scene that I really liked about Sherlock Wells. Like, his detectiveness and the mystery around what he deduced was actually very interesting, and that's one thing they could do different with him between the rest of the Wellses. Him being a detective, and scenes like this where he deduces that Nora did not come to the conclusion alone to come back to the past. Maybe she has a nefarious plan, or maybe she just has a ulterior motive to come back for other reasons other than she says. And I think that is a very interesting way to tell the audience that in this episode. And then it was revealed that Cicada actually has a daughter, which I definitely thought he would have some sort of family, going off the fact that he didn't kill Barry in the second episode when Nora screamed dead. Also, there was a deleted scene from the Flash finale of season 4 where you could see a little girl in the distance in his house. So I thought already that he definitely has a family in this season. Also, I think he was described as a normal guy, so I would just assume that a normal guy his age, probably does have a family, and I would think that that family, especially this daughter who is in a coma, was put in a coma by a metahuman, or maybe metahumans in general. So that's why he's going after metahumans, killing all of them, and that's his vendetta against metahumans, which I found very interesting. It's just that the season didn't do a very good job at really hiding the fact that he had a daughter. Who knows, maybe they didn't even try to. I don't think they needed to, but I think that this wasn't much of a reveal, but it was a good way to tell the audience who doesn't know that he probably has a family that he does. So, in conclusion, this episode was so much better than I expected it to be. I love the conclusion of the title, The Death of Vibe. The whole storyline with Vibe was great, really well done. Cicada, too, pretty badass in this episode. The Caitlin storyline was great. Nora's storyline was very satisfying. Then there's Sherlock Wells, who is very repetitive and redundant, but I feel like he could be different, or just different enough to be a better character, or a less repetitive and redundant character, but I'm not too sure about that. But other than that, I loved everything about this episode, and I don't think Sherlock Wells' introduction is enough to knock off any points from the score, because it's not really a major thing, at least in this episode. So I'll give the episode a 10 out of 10, and let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, as well as in the poll in the top right corner of the video. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.